Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard. I am the New York Daily News NFL columnist and Giants beat writer. This is the NFL Draft Giants quarterback episode with ESPN national correspondent Sal Paolantonio as our special guest. Going to tell you guys about BetOnline and then get right to our fantastic interview with Sal Pal. BetOnline is your number one source for all your summer sports this season. From MLB, golf, NBA, and NHL playoff stats. All the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet online where the game starts. And right to our interview with Sal Paolantonio from ESPN. All right, welcome to a special episode of Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard, approaching the 2024 NFL Draft. We are thrilled to have ESPN national correspondent Sal Paolantonio, the great Sal Pal, back on the podcast. Sal, thanks so much for being here again.
Pat, it's totally my pleasure. We're on the doorstep of the 2024 NFL Draft. I'll be embedded with the New York Giants, the team of my youth.
All right. All right. And that's going to be a draft that everyone's going to have their eyes on, not only in the top 10, but even New York specifically, an important pivot point for all of these quarterbacks at the top and all the drama that is to come. So let's get right into it because you've covered the NFL for 32 years, the NFL draft for 3 decades, 30 years. So if you could take me back, please, to the year of 2004. The Giants acquire future 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback Eli Manning, of course, in the famous draft day trade with the Chargers. What do you remember about the anticipation of what Ernie Accorsi, the GM at that time, was going to do with so many future top quarterbacks available in that draft?
Well, we all knew that behind the scenes that Eli Manning wanted to come to New York. And I was working very closely at the time with Ed Werder. And he and I broke the story on the air of the trade. I was embedded with the Giants, and of course it was huge news. No doubt. And Eli goes on to win 2 Super Bowl championships. I've always found that the Giants, of all the organizations that I've dealt with in the NFL, to be really among the most forthcoming when it comes to handling the media and reporters. I think the Mara family, the Tisch family, I started out with Fossil, and then Tom Coughlin, and Coughlin and I got along very well because of his appreciation of the military. As you know, I'm a former naval officer.
That's right.
So I had Coughlin time branded into my brain long before Michael Strahan.
Right. It was Sal Pal time before it was Coughlin time.
Yeah, exactly. So I got along always really well with Tom Coughlin, and then I covered the 2 Super Bowl runs of the Giants in the Eli Manning era. And, it was, in my view, other than Lawrence Taylor, probably the most spectacular draft pick of the New York Giants in their history going back to 1925.
What was that, 10, 15, 20 minutes, half hour like of chasing that down and breaking that in conjunction with Ed and just kind of the drama building through it all to that obviously a shape-shifting trade and draft for NFL history. Like, what was it like being in the middle of that?
I'm an old newspaper guy like you, New York Daily News, me, Philadelphia Inquirer. It was a stop the presses moment. That's what it was. It was like, okay, this is where we're going to be until we got this story covered horizontally and vertically, up and down, stem to stern. And that's the way it was. And in those days on the draft, it was about the news. And Chris Berman, I remember him coming to me multiple times. We had Tom Coughlin, we had Ernie Accorsi live on the show. And then, of course, Eli Manning came live on the show. I think we had Tom Condon live on the show. You name it, everybody came on the show. It was a big moment. It was definitely, among the drafts that I've covered, it was definitely top 3.
Fantastic. I got to go back and watch that coverage now after we record this episode. So keeping in mind that historical context, 2004, obviously there have been years where the Giants look more likely that they're going to be in the quarterback than not. You, of course, were at the forefront of understanding what they were looking for while breaking that news a couple decades ago. So this year in 2024, from my vantage point, the Giants are behaving like a team that intends to draft a quarterback. Right here in 2024, they hold the number 6 overall pick. My direct question to you to start off this conversation is, do you believe that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll need to draft a quarterback this year?
I do. I think they must. Because, Pat, it's not really about who the quarterback is in 2024. It's who is the starting quarterback of the New York Giants in 2025. It is their centennial anniversary. It doesn't get any bigger than that. It's the centennial anniversary to the Tiffany franchise of the National Football League, the one that is more closely associated with the Park Avenue headquarters than any other team, is the New York Football Giants. So they have to make a statement about who their quarterback is going to be in 2025. This year, it'll be Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and maybe whoever is the rookie will get a chance to get on the field at some point. And Daniel Jones is a big boy. He understands all of that. Drew Lock's been around. He gets it. And I love Daniel Jones, always have. He's been a complete gentleman to all of us at ESPN, and he's proven his mettle, mettle. He has proven his toughness. He's taken the hits. He's remained stoic. He's remained on track. He has been a fabulous teammate. He's just gotten injured, and that's a hard thing to overcome. And so, with the coach and the GM not drafting him, what do they have invested in Daniel Jones emotionally or soulfully that would keep him on the roster in 2025 when they don't owe him any money guaranteed? And that's the key thing. Who will be the quarterback next year? Now, Pat, and I'm laboring here with this point, and I apologize, but
No,
Pat,
this is great.
Pat, who do they draft at 6? Who drops in their lap at 6? Let's start with that question. Who drops in their lap at 6?
Right. Let's say it's Washington receiver Rome Odunze.
Okay, so you're saying that they're not going to get one of the top 4 quarterbacks at 6.
Well, you're just playing out the scenario, right?
Okay, so that means they got to move up. So what did the Broncos trade for Zach Wilson tell us yesterday?
That told us they think they can't get up there.
That the Patriots are holding a king's ransom for that pick. Correct. 100%. They can't go from, 12 to 3?
Right.
They tried. We all know they tried, but they couldn't get from 12 to 3 or 12 to 4. So both New England and Arizona are demanding a lot to move out. So that means Minnesota's probably going to be shut out at 11 too, correct?
Most likely. They do have more ammo than Denver, but asking a king's ransom is asking a king's ransom. So that could mean Minnesota is shut out as well.
So there's desperation in Oakland, desperation in Denver, and there is definitely desperation in Minnesota. Minnesota right now, who are they lining up and playing at quarterback in a division that's being dominated again by Green Bay and now Detroit?
Right. It's Sam Darnold at the moment.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
One answer in Minnesota, Sam Darnold. Another answer is Zach Wilson in Denver. The Broncos, in the span of 12 months, gave up on Russell Wilson, right, who won a Super Bowl, and brought in Zach Wilson, who is a draft bust.
Right.
Tell me that computes. I don't get it. It does say something about how desperate Denver is. It says something about how much New England wants. It says something about how much Denver's in the weeds, but we don't really care about that. So let's say Minnesota, but Minnesota's the next team up, right? Mm-hmm. They're the ones that could jump ahead of the Giants.
Yes. Right. They absolutely are. And to answer your question too about who could fall into your lap at 6 with the Giants, and obviously this can change minute to minute based on what you hear talking to people around the league. But if there's one of these so-called top quarterbacks that falls into the Giants' lap at 6, possibly it could be JJ McCarthy from Michigan, right?
Take him. Just
right.
Take him. You got to take him. You got to take him. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but when I started covering the draft, my mug said Dad. Now it says Papa, as in Grandpa. So I'm way ahead of you on that curve, Pat.
Clearly your favorite mug now, too, no doubt.
The only one I use.
That's right. That's right. So I think I know your answer to this question then, based on how you're talking about the quarterback position and its importance in particular to the Giants and all these teams that need one, clearly. But my question, circling back quickly to that 2004 draft again, Ernie Accorsi, the way he ended up getting that deal done was by including, he wouldn't trade Osi Umenyiora, right? But he included next year's, so the 2005 first round pick to get it done. So you and I are sitting here talking right now about the New England Patriots at 3 and the Arizona Cardinals at 4, and it'll take a king's ransom to get up there to get your guy. Not only do you think they need a quarterback, but if you're Joe Schoen, is it worth it to use next year's first round pick to acquire the quarterback that you have fallen in love with and believe in? Or is that too expensive, especially considering, given the Giants state, that could end up being another top 10 selection?
Pat, this is where the rubber meets the road in this entire conversation. Without a doubt, you've hit the nail on the head. So let's play out the scenario.
Yeah.
Williams goes 1, Jaden Daniels goes 2 to Washington. No one can entice the Patriots to jump out of 3, and the Patriots take Drake May. Now the Cardinals are sitting there, and they don't need a quarterback. I don't think it will take the extra 1 to go up to 4, because the Cardinals don't want to be stuck. If the Cardinals can move from 4 to 6, get a Dunze or Marvin Harrison, because the Chargers are not going to take a receiver, although if I were the Chargers, I would. But so the Giants can move from 6 to 4, because Arizona, do they really want to sit there and hold the Giants' feet to the fire with demanding a first-round pick in 2025? Right. They may do that, and that's where it really gets interesting to me, because the Cardinals will not want, in my view, they will not want to go from 4 to 11. Right?
I agree with you. I was just going to say that's what's advantageous for the Giants right here, is they will not want to go that far back and trade out of that elite cluster of players. I agree with you.
So that's where the Giants have to make the trade, I think. They have to wait it out, and they have to trade with the Cardinals and hope the Cardinals use some common sense. It's a big hope. It's a big hope. I realize that, I get it, but they got to hope.
No, and I think this is going to be a really interesting draft because of how much chatter has been happening in, let's say, 5 days, 6 days, a full week out of the draft, and it's continuing between these GMs. And I think it's going to continue all the way up until these teams are on the clock for them to maximize their deals. You know, teams that are trading back, make sure they're not trading too far. I really do think we're going to see some fireworks. That you brought up a really interesting point, though, is that Drake May being a guy that the Giants like, and I think they like him and JJ McCarthy, but let's say Drake May is their number 1, which is what I believe. The Patriots at the moment don't seem ready to move off that spot, as you noted. And so that's where it's a really interesting scenario for Joe Schoen in a year where his team needs to be much better than it was last year. It needs to make progress. So he's got to investigate all these potential trade back scenarios to get more players. But he also could use an elite player at 6, because that might help you win a few more games. It puts him in a really tough spot. It feels like there's no true right answer, but that's why I continue to circle back on, if I'm Joe, I'm on the phone with Elliott Wolf, and then Monty Ossenfort, and then Joe Ortiz at 5, even if it happens to be that. I'm on the phone with them until they make their pick, because of how important it is to get my QB.
Yeah, I agree.
So
100%. I think if the Giants do wind up staying at 6 for whatever reason, they get outbid, they decide it was too rich, whatever it is, at 6, they'll get, in my view, a game-breaking elite wide receiver, which they need.
No doubt. So if you're John Mara and Giants ownership, do you have any reservation about drafting a QB 1 year after paying Daniel 4 years, 160 million contract? Or is it, let's not double down on something that could be a mistake?
No, I think it comes down to who's the quarterback in the centennial year of the New York Giants in 2025. Who's the starting quarterback? Who is it going to be? I think that's the key.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up that 100-year anniversary, the 100th season of the team, because
it's huge.
That's something, Sal, that frankly hasn't been talked about much, and it's something that you articulated it perfectly earlier in our interview here. But it is something that, given the tradition and history of the Giants related to the league, not only means a lot just because of what it is, but it means everything to the Mara family, to the Tisches, to this organization, how they carry themselves and carry them into this new century for an organization that is proud and has 4 Super Bowl trophies, but has faltered and has fallen on hard times, right? So I think you framed this perfectly there.
Yeah, you want to celebrate in 2025 the right way.
Yeah.
Look at the last 7 years in the National Football League, Pat. The teams with the most losses in the last 7 years are the Jets with 79, the Giants with 77, the Panthers with 73, Broncos 72, Jags 72. Which one of those teams doesn't belong with the other? It's the Giants. The Jets came from the AFL. The Panthers were a expansion franchise. The Broncos were out west, part of the AFL, and the Jags were an expansion franchise. And the Giants are literally the one that everybody holds up to. It's like, listen, It's so important for the league, for the Giants to be good. All of the metrics show that still to this day, the Giants are in the top 5 of Q rating among all NFL franchises. We put the Giants on TV. People watch. It's Dallas, New England, Green Bay, Pittsburgh, New York Giants. Some semblance of that top 5. Eagles are close. They're getting there, but they're not anywhere near the Giants in terms of national Q rating.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. They stick out like a sore thumb in that list, and that's one they need to get off of sooner rather than later. You mentioned the Eagles. It's actually an interesting example of a team that they draft Carson Wentz, and then 4 years later, only 1 year after they extended Carson Wentz's contract, they take a second-round pick and use it on Jalen Hurts. If the Giants don't take a quarterback at number 6 overall, are you a believer that they might still be able to fix that problem, let's say, or address it maybe with their second round pick or number 47 overall? Is that a good blueprint possibly for how to pivot? Or do you believe when you need a quarterback, go and get one? You can't count on that second round, third round guy turning into, let's say, what Jalen Hurts has been early in his career for the Eagles.
It's really tough to do. I mean, Russell Wilson was a third-round pick. He won a Super Bowl. Nick Foles was a third-round pick. He won a Super Bowl. Tom Brady was 199. He won multiple Super Bowls. We get it. It happens, but it's not the norm. Patrick Mahomes II has won 3 Super Bowls. He was a first-round pick. Eli won 2. Elway, Peyton Manning. Go down the list. You're better off at having the pedigree guy. And the Giants' history, Pat, is getting the pedigree guy. That's their history. So I don't know if they will do that. I don't know if the ownership will sign off on that. Depends on what they have to invest to do that. If you're suggesting they have to jump back into the first round to get Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr., I don't see that happening. Not because that will take a major investment for someone that you're totally unsure of. Totally.
Right. Well said. You didn't have the confidence to take him with your first pick, and now you're gambling on him at that part of the draft. Still high, not high enough.
Here's what you have to hope happens if you don't get a quarterback in the first round. You have to hope, and God bless him. I hope he gets well, and quickly and gets back on the field, Daniel Jones. You have to hope that Daniel Jones gets healthy, plays well, and somehow you can keep him as a bridge, a holdover to get to the next possible young quarterback if you don't draft one of the top in the top 4.
Sal, from your experience, so one thing I have been stuck on through this whole process and, not moving off of is that I believe the Giants are chasing this QB in this draft. And I feel like every sign is there, from having Russell Wilson in for a visit right at the start of free agency to having Drake May and JJ McCarthy in for top 30s early. They sent essentially the whole organization out to Washington to meet Michael Penix Jr. and have dinner with him. John Mara even said at the owners' meetings, go ahead and draft a quarterback if you love him. Let him compete with Daniel Jones. That all leads into my question is, from your experience, do teams ever hunt quarterbacks this aggressively and not draft them? Like from what you've seen of 3 decades covering the NFL draft? Or is it overthinking it for people to say, well, they could go quarterback, they could go some other ways? Like, is it just, it's right in front of your face? Like, believe what you're seeing?
There's always smoke screens. Teams bring in picks as one of their 30 visits all the time to set a smoke screen for another team. I see it all the time. It happens with every team. Having said that, the Giants have invested a lot of their inventory this offseason, scouting, financials, medicals, whatever, to finding a quarterback, to be ready and be prepared to get the quarterback at 4 or 3 if they can, or if they like one of the others, to go back into the first round and grab one of the others if they can get it. Because the money is the money. After this year, you don't owe Daniel Jones anything. And so in 2025, I go back to what I originally said. Who's the starting quarterback in 25? And that is what they have to worry about. The other thing too, Pat, is if you draft a quarterback now, if you're Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, you get a new lease. Now you get a chance to develop this guy. Now, obviously, if you win 2 games, all bets are off, or 3 games, then you're just 2 years away from going to the playoffs. However unlikely that was, you cobbled together a postseason berth. We know you have ability. We know that you work hard. We know that your heart's in the right place. We know all of those things. You're willing to adapt and change. Those are the kinds of things you want in a head coach and you want in a general manager. So it gives them another couple of years on their lease in that job if they pick a quarterback early. It says to the ownership, okay, well, we got this guy. We got these coaches. We got this GM. And if there's one thing that the Maras and the Tisches are, maybe to a fault, is they're patient people and they're judicious people.
Mm-hmm. And I really like what you said there about Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen getting a new lease and proving they can develop this guy, because especially for Daboll's sake, going into 3, if he is going to stake his claim and prove himself on anything, it has to be the offensive side of the ball. And not only fixing the offense, but my best understanding is he intends to call plays this season and take that off of Mike Kafka's hands permanently, or at least for this year. And then on top of that, if you're going to show the Maras and the Tisches anything, if you're Brian Daboll, you're showing them, look what I did with Josh Allen. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Josh Allen, but whether it's Drake May or JJ McCarthy, you were brought here because of the work you did with now one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL, right? And so I 100% agree that is where you plant your flag if you're this regime and if you're Brian Daboll. And Joe Schoen, of course, was there with Brandon Beane, making an uber aggressive double trade up move to go get a guy that they believed wholeheartedly in, right?
Sal, and here's the thing about JJ McCarthy, 27-1, coached by Jim Harbaugh to a national championship. Does he have the prototypical skills or body to succeed in the NFL right now? No, but he's 21. He's not 28. You grow a lot. You grow a lot mentally. maturity, physically, in the next 4 to 5 years from 21 to 25. So if you think he can grow, and he's proven that he can grow under one of the toughest coaches there is, Jim Harbaugh, that's the Navy SEALs right there.
That's right. And you hit on an important point there. Winning really is what matters most. And JJ McCarthy doesn't lose games. All right, get you out on this one. I know your time is extreme.
I just want to go back to one point, Pat, and
Sure.
I do have to get out. But Pat, when this is the thing that we hit on twice now. Let's hit it on a third time. When the New York Giants wake up in 2025, what will be the face of the franchise in the centennial year of that franchise? Who will be the quarterback, coach, and GM? Those have got to be the number one things that the Maras and the Tisches are concerned about.
And we will keep a close eye on that. And like you said, it's not just the quarterback, it's the general manager, it's the head coach, it's who's going to be running the franchise. Sal, last question to get you out on really quickly. Obviously, you cover the whole league, an expert in all of it, including the NFC East division. We love a lot of hated rivals. Mm-hmm. And we have 3 coaches right now that, from my vantage point, their seats could be anywhere from warm to hot. Nick Sirianni in Philly, Mike McCarthy in Dallas, Brian Daboll in New York. Just wondering, from your vantage point, how would you rank their seats from hottest to coolest as far as job security?
McCarthy, Sirianni, Daboll. You know, all 4 teams have new defensive coordinators. I've never seen that before in the NFC East. All 4. It's crazy. It is absolutely crazy. By the way, shameless plug, watch Greg Cosell, Darius Butler, and myself on ESPN Plus, the NFL matchup draft special. It's on ESPN Plus right now. It's my 22nd year hosting the show. It's our best show ever. It's all about the quarterbacks, explosive plays in the National Football League, and the Giants are right in the middle of the show.
We will go check that out immediately. The great Sal Paolantonio, everyone. Sal, thanks for making the time with us as always.
Pat, you're a great friend, a great reporter, and I love being on the air with you. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks, as always, to the great Sal Pal. He brings it every time. Remember, we are sponsored by Bet Online here at the Believe Network. Also by Estate 98 Coffee and Esencia Day Cafe from El Salvador. Dates back to 1798. Please rate, review, and subscribe here on the YouTube page at PL on NFL, Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard, and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you are listening. See you next time. NFL Draft on deck.